With the top Republican in the House, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy is with us. Mr. Leader, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
The Wall Street Journal moves this story today. President Trump, in a July phone call, repeatedly pressured the president of Ukraine to investigate Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden's son, urging Zelensky 8 times to work with Rudy Giuliani, his personal lawyer, on a probe, according to people familiar with the matter. Do you have a problem with that?
Well, listen, just as you said last night, we need to know more facts. This is just being written in the Wall Street Journal. What did we see last week with the New York Times writing something before they have all the facts? The Director of National Intelligence, the acting director, is going to be before the Intel Committee next Thursday in a public hearing. And I think that will be the appropriate time to find the information out.
The president seemed to say, hey, listen, I can talk to world leaders how I want to, but you should look into this. You seemed, when talking to reporters today, worried about the Joe Biden-Ukraine thing a lot more than you were with the whistleblower thing. Is that fair?
Well, whether it's fair here is the president should be able to talk to every world leader. Tonight he's going to...
So, former Vice President Joe Biden has long maintained that his son Hunter's business dealings in Ukraine had no impact on his policies, like threatening to hold back $1 billion in loan guarantees for Ukraine during the Obama administration in exchange for the removal of a prosecutor named Viktor Shokin. When Biden was still vice president, he told The Atlantic in August 2016 about this episode, quote, Ukrainian President Poroshenko, I pushed him on getting rid of a corrupt prosecutor general. We had committed $1 billion. I said, Petro, you're not getting your $1 billion. That story is complicated by the fact that Biden's son Hunter and his business partners at an energy firm called Burisma were reportedly part of a broad effort by Burisma to bring in well-connected Democrats during a period when the company was facing investigations backed not just by domestic Ukrainian forces, but by officials in the Obama. This is a Fox News alert. Washington, D.C. police are looking for suspects after separate shootings left 2 people dead and 7 injured. As the district deals with an uptick in crime and rampant corruption, Democrats are leading a brand new charge for statehood. Senior Capitol Hill producer Chad Pergram takes a look at the first hearing on this issue in 25 years. Hey, Chad.
Shannon, every state gets 2 statutes, but Washington, D.C. isn't a state, so it only gets 1. This is Frederick Douglass. He was a noted abolitionist and lived in Washington, D.C. And if Washington, D.C. becomes a state, it'll be known as Washington Douglass Commonwealth. Liberals support statehood for D.C. Democratic Michigan Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib says she'll fly an American flag bearing 51 stars outside her Capitol Hill office.
To deny the statehood of the District of Columbia is to deny the impact of slavery in America.
Republicans oppose making D.C. a state at the first hearing on D.C. statehood in more than 25 years.
Congress cannot admit D.C. as a state legislatively. If you want to change it, there's a remedy, and it requires amending the Constitution of the United States.
The geographic dimensions of the District of Columbia are spelled out in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. It specifically outlines a federal district not exceeding 10 miles square to serve as the seat of government of the United States. Here's the problem for D.C. It has no vote on the House floor and no senators. It's not a state, so it can't
bid. After 3 years of investigation and 1 Mueller report to prevent future meddling, is the president really taking us down this road again? Here's the latest. CNN confirmed tonight that President Trump did pressure the president of Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden's son in a call earlier this summer. The Wall Street Journal, owned by a Trump pal, also reports that pressure was applied about 8 times in that one call, in hopes Ukraine would work with the president's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. Giuliani was pushing for Ukraine to look into Biden's son, Hunter, too, as he shared last night in a denial-turned-admission that was like something out of A Few Good Men. Did you ask the Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden?
No, actually, I didn't. I asked the Ukraine to investigate the allegations that there was interference in the election of 2016 by the Ukrainians for the benefit of Hillary Clinton, for which there already is a court finding.
You never asked anything about Hunter Biden. You never asked anything about Joe Biden.
The only thing I asked about Joe Biden is to get to the bottom of how it was that Lutsenko, who was appointed, dismissed the case against Antak.
So you did ask Ukraine to look into Joe Biden?
Of course I did.
You just said you didn't. You have to see past the passion and see the purpose. Giuliani came with a plan to provide cover for the president, which we will deconstruct for you tonight in detail. And how do we see the proof of it? Well, just today, the president followed his lead. He did not deny that he, too, personally asked the foreign government to probe his political opponent. Listen.
It doesn't matter what I discuss, but I will say this. Somebody ought to look into Joe Biden's statement because it was disgraceful, where he talked about billions of dollars that he's not giving to a certain country unless a certain prosecutor is taken off the case. So somebody ought to look into that.
We will show you why what the president discussed does matter and why he discussed it matters even more. And the facts and questions that are driving both concerns we will lay out, especially now that this president has to explain the same action that he's calling out Biden for, withholding aid to Ukraine. Why did this president release $250 million in Ukraine aid only right after Congressman Schiff asked for information about the whistleblower? Now, as for Biden, he's coming out swinging. Quote, if these reports are true, then there is truly no bottom to President Trump's willingness to abuse his power and abase our country. All right, so let's start filling in the blanks with two top investigators. We have Preet Bharara and Andrew McCabe. Gentlemen, thank you both. So, Preet, when we are looking at this situation and we're trying to understand what matters, what pops out to you first?
Look, you have, as you discussed in the intro, a repeat situation. You have someone who has taken the country through whatever you think about the results, whatever you think about Bob.
High school cheerleaders suspended for no reason after caught holding Trump 2020 sign. Can you believe it? But before I dive into the news, please check to ensure you're still subscribed to our channel with notifications enabled. If this is your first time watching, tap the button below to subscribe for real news and opinion every single day. Let's get into our story. I Love My Freedom reports on Monday that cheerleaders from a North Carolina high school were put on probation for the remainder of the football season for posing with a Trump 2020 banner before a football game on August 30th. Take a look at the clip for yourself.
The North Stanley High School cheerleading team is now on probation for taking part in a political message at a football game. Last month, students and cheerleaders posed for photos with the Trump 2020 flag. Now, the school told Channel 9 if the administration was made aware, they would have asked them not to display it. The cheerleaders will be on probation for the rest of the season. District policy bans political ads at school events.
Incredible. The photo was posted on Facebook, prompting some commenters to take issue. One wrote, of course, "Why in the world would the school board allow this to happen? I am sad and very disappointed with NS."